news for you tonight. Robert Mueller accusing Paul Manafort of witness tampering and wants to revoke or revise Manafort's house arrest, which could send him to jail. More on that in just a moment. Plus, President Trump disinvites the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, who were supposed to attend a White House ceremony tomorrow. The president has repeatedly and publicly criticized players for not standing for the anthem. He's called them sons of bitches. He's aggressively lobbied NFL owners to force players to stand for the anthem. He's gone so far as saying the owners should fire players who protest. Now the president is falsely claiming the Eagles players don't want to stand for the anthem. That's right, falsely claiming that they don't want to stand. I'll explain that. Joining me now on the phone is Mayor of Philadelphia, Mayor Jim Kenney. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Don. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Listen, the president just tweeted this. He said the Philadelphia Eagles football team was invited to the White House. Unfortunately, only a small number of players decided to come, and we canceled the event. Staying in the locker room for the playing of our national anthem is as disrespectful to our country as kneeling. Sorry. So here's the thing. None of the Philadelphia Eagles players stayed in the locker room. None of them took a knee for the season. So what he's talking about, that is in fact a lie as well. So,
well, there's no one more disrespectful to this country than the President of the United States, which is a sad thing to say, but it's true.
You say that it's tough to say that. Before what you said about you said it's embarrassing. He didn't want to be embarrassed. Don't you think it's tough to say the words that you just said, but you have to because they're true? It's true.
Well, first of all, I'm glad he disinvited us, or disinvited the team, because we won't have any lingering issues coming into next season, which I think is very important. Didn't want some players to show up and others not to, and have it enter into the locker room and you know, keep us back from repeating as Super Bowl champions. So I don't really care what he does. The guy talks about being patriotic. He avoided the draft 5 times. In Vietnam. And Philadelphia is a city that has 2 high schools. One is Thomas Edison High School that lost 64 members of their class in Vietnam, and the other is Father Judge High School that lost 27 members of their class in Vietnam. If he wanted to be patriotic, he could have been patriotic back then, as opposed to this sham of an issue relative to the national anthem. I stand for the national anthem and cover my heart because I am a privileged white male, and I have a reason to stand. There are other people in this country who have not experienced the same level of fairness and same level of issues that I have, and they have a right to show their displeasure, and that's what the First Amendment's all about. And if he doesn't want to accept the First Amendment or other amendments, that's on him. But I'm proud of our players. They're they're wonderful athletes, and they're great in the community. They volunteer. They raise money. They're all of them. I mean, Malcolm and Nathan and Chris Long and Carson Wentz. They all are contributing to the community. So I'm very happy that they're Super Bowl champions. That they're our players, and they don't have to go to the White House.
Okay, so I was asking you. This is a question I wanted to ask you. You had some tough words. Your first answer here. And you released a statement just as tough, saying, disinviting them from the White House only proves that our president is not a true patriot, but a fragile egomaniac, obsessed with crowd size and afraid of the embarrassment of throwing a party to which no one wants to attend. Tell me about that. Well,
the truth hurts. I mean, and that's the case. It's been happening since he was sworn in, and every day is a new adventure in dysfunction. And I hope we can recover from it, and I'm looking forward to when he's not there to get our country back to where it should be. And that could be 2018, 19, could be 2020. Hopefully it won't be 2024. But it's just an embarrassment. And I'm proud of our Eagles, and I'm proud that they're not going.
Mayor Kenney, thank you for your time.
Okay, take care, Don. And Don, you're not a former Philadelphian. You're always Philadelphia.
Always. I love that city. I bought my first home in that city, and I will never forget it. Monroe between 2nd and 3rd. So thank you very much.
Queen Village. Village. Take care, man.
Yep, absolutely. Care. I want to bring in CNN contributor Frank Bruni of the New York Times, also CNN political commentator Joe Lockhart, the former NFL Executive Vice President of Communications and Public Affairs, and former U.S. Attorney Harry Litman, and CNN political commentator Amanda Carpenter, author of Gaslighting America, Why We Love It When Trump Lies to Us. Let me start with you, Joe, and Frank. So you're the former Chief Communications Officer for the NFL. The mayor. did not hold back. What do you think?
Yeah, well, you know, the Philadelphia fans were famously booed Santa Claus one year, so they don't pull their punches there.
Throw batteries.
It's hard to know where to start with this, but let me try to be positive. The Eagles represent the best of the NFL.
Right.
Malcolm Jenkins has been the leader of this group that will now have $150, $200 million at their disposal to help do criminal justice reform and social justice. Chris Long donated every paycheck, 16 game checks, to charity as a way of making a statement. Carson Wentz, $500,000 for Haiti in the aftermath of the earthquake. And to them, to Donald Trump, they're sons of bitches. Mm-hmm. And they're that because they don't kneel to him. Mm-hmm. This is an imperial presidency that is putting our democracy at risk. And this is just this evening's, not even today's example. We've got 4 of them from today. It's just this evening's example.
What do you think, Frank?
You know, I think the mayor was really eloquent and speaks for a lot of Americans. And I think Joe's right. There's only one metric that Donald Trump uses above all others to judge people, and that's how readily and how expansively do you genuflect to Donald Trump. Some of these players were not genuflecting to him. Shocker. I mean, he has so demonized NFL players and done so, you know, in such an indiscriminate and gratuitous way. Some of them didn't want to come. And his response is, okay, none of you come. I keep waiting for the President of the United States to be the biggest person in the room, not the smallest person in the room. And Donald Trump scuttles that expectation every day, every way.
Don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath with that.
I'm not good at holding.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about Bill Clinton,
sure,
the guy you worked for in the news. He is trying to clarify his tone-deaf comments about his affair with Monica Lewinsky tonight. Here's what he originally said to NBC.
Looking back on what happened then, through the lens of Me Too now, do you think differently or feel more responsibility?
No, I felt terrible then, and I came to grips with it.
Did you ever apologize to her?
No, yes, and nobody believes that I got out of that for free. I left the White House $16 million in debt. But you typically have ignored gaping facts in describing this, and I bet you don't even know them. This was litigated 20 years ago. 2/3 of the American people sided with me. They were not insensitive to that. I had a sexual harassment policy when I was governor in the 80s. I had 2 women chiefs of staff when I was governor. Women were overrepresented in the Attorney General's office in the 70s for their percentage in the bar. I've had nothing but women leaders in my office since I left.
You didn't apologize to her.
I have not talked to her.
Do you feel like you owe her an apology?
No, I do. I do not. I've never talked to her, but I did say publicly on more than one occasion that I was sorry. That's very different. The apology was public.
Not good.
No, I think he made a mistake there that he doesn't make that often, and it's one that we see our current president doing all the time, which is not separating the 2 things. He was treated unfairly by the Republicans. It was a partisan attack to remove him from office. Newt Gingrich famously said, when asked, why are you doing this, his answer was, because we can. But he conflated that with the underlying thing that he did apologize for at the time. And in doing that, he undermined the apology. And it was a mistake, and I think he did try to clean it up a little bit later in the day.
I was shocked that he was not prepared for that question.
Yeah.
And maybe that's him thinking he's prepared. It is such an easy answer. I've lived with this regret every single day of my life. I am sorry for Monica Lewinsky and her family. And if she is listening right now, I want to apologize to her, and I would love to reach out to her, but I haven't done it out of respect or something. He should have reached out to her, but it's so easy to answer that question.
Again, I think you know, as we've talked about, that answer is diametrically opposed to, at the time, what the president did as president, which was not focus on himself, not focus on the victimization of the president, and focus on the country's work. And you can see why, you know, when the answer comes out that way, yeah, it's not effective at all.
That's why I was so stunned. I was just stunned by it. So you were stunned by it as well. But yeah, I want you, this is what he said, his clarification tonight, and then I'll get your response, Frank. Here he is.
The truth is, the hubbub was I got hot under the collar because of the way the questions were asked, and I think what was lost are the 2 points that I made that are important to me. The suggestion was that I'd never apologized for what caused all the trouble for me 20 years ago. So the first point is, I did. I meant it then and I meant it now. I apologize to my family, to Monica Lewinsky and her family, and to the American people before a panel of ministers in the White House, which was widely reported. So I did that. I meant it then, and I mean it today. I live with it all the time. The second is that I support the Me Too movement, and I think it's long overdue. And I have always tried to support it in the decisions and policies that I've advanced.
Is that clarification enough?
I mean, he cleaned it up a little, but you know what I heard in that I also heard a lot in the interview? I heard a lot of I. And the question is about someone who was a 21-year-old White House intern at the time. I found that to be a stunning interview because he attacked the reporter, right? He cited public opinion polls, 2/3 of Americans were with me, and he had a little self-pity party. Who does that remind you of, Don?
Donald Trump.
Yeah, I don't need to be reminded of Donald Trump by a president whom I have much more respect for, but who did not have his best day today.
Amanda, I want to hear from you now. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree completely with Frank that Bill Clinton still thinks it's all about him. And there's no compassion for what he put not only Monica Lewinsky through, but his entire party through. And I think we need to spend a moment reflecting, and the country, and reflect specifically on what Monica Lewinsky was put through. She was gaslit. She was depicted as a narcissistic, obsessive Looney Tune because of something that happened with President Clinton. They had an affair. He gave her gifts. He invited her to the Oval Office. And still to this day, people will say, well, Monica Lewinsky chased around that president and made him do it. No. He was the most powerful, arguably, person in America. She was at her first job. And then when she left the White House, she got manipulated by a whole group of other people, starting with Linda Tripp and all the Republicans who did want to pin something on President Clinton. And so I want a retelling of Monica Lewinsky's story. You know, she may be a victim. She's not innocent. She was a grown woman. She did know what she was doing. But everything that happened to her after, think about it. She was 21 years old, and Linda Tripp lured her into the Ritz-Carlton in Arlington, Virginia, where FBI agents were waiting to lure her into a hotel room and threatened her mother with jail time. She has a story that she has never fully gotten to tell because, as she wrote in the Vanity Fair article, she's still processing this. Yeah. She has PTSD. She went into hiding. And Bill Clinton still got to keep on being president. Yes, he was impeached in the House. Yes, he did suffer some consequences. But, man, I think Monica suffered a lot more.
Listen, I agree. And you say she was a grown woman, but there was a huge power imbalance. You know that, right? Yeah.
Yes, and that's why I mentioned he was commander-in-chief. She was an intern on her first job.
So, Harry, you know, you've been sitting by patiently through this. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. We have two living presidents who have been investigated for obstruction of justice. Both have also been accused of sexual misconduct by multiple women. Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, are they more alike than both Democrats and Republicans would like to admit?
It's really interesting. I mean, I think Clinton, I recognize when he was tired and off his game, but he also missed the basic lesson of the Me Too movement. You know, oh, I had 2 women chiefs of staff when I was Attorney General. It's kind of like Harvey Weinstein gave a lot of money to women's causes. It just misses the point of the real sin. But I hear the similarities from Frank and others, but I see a kind of contrast here. To me, Clinton was caught off guard and was a little bit trying to have it both ways, and the way he sometimes does was sort of talking in half measures. And you compare that to the pedal to the metal, total sense of a grievance and defiance that you get from Trump, who all his supporters know, for example, that of course he had sexual relations with multiple women, but he's chosen to play it in such a pugnacious way that he has kind of retained his base, and you wonder if that is more effective. Neither is a great model for American youth or America, but I was struck that Clinton tried to tiptoe a little where Trump has been a real bull about it and has in some way succeeded on his terms.
Joe, I know you want to respond. Go ahead.
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree that it was not a good interview and it was not a good performance and that he messed up. But the comparison falls here, which is the president felt very strongly at the time that he was being unfairly treated. He never fired an FBI director. He never publicly shamed his attorney general. He never ridiculed the entire intelligence community. He never tried to undermine vast swaths of the government in order to protect himself. He did just the opposite. He kept his mouth shut, and he went about doing his job. So I don't think the comparisons hold up.
Let me just push back just a little bit. I do
more
agree
than
with
that,
you,
he
Joe,
not only-
that I do agree with you, Joe, that when it came to the investigation, Bill Clinton did conduct himself more honorably, but I can't forget about things like, bimbo eruptions. James Carville saying, well, if you drag a dollar through a trailer park, who knows what you'll find? Hillary Clinton dismissing questions of the vast right-wing conspiracy. And so I do think some of the precedent that happened with denying these accusations from women during the Clinton administration did provide some of the framework that's being used today.
Go ahead.
Don,
Joe.
can I make a quick point?
Yeah.
Just in general, look, both Nixon and Clinton felt constrained by a sense of the dignity and the importance of the institution of the office. Trump has zero of that, besides agreeing with the whole litany of the really singular sins he's committed. He has shown in this whole approach no respect at all or worry about the status of the presidency. Even Nixon and certainly Clinton were different that way.
Listen, we talked about this longer than we were going to, but I want to think it was a fascinating conversation and deserved to be talked about. I wanted to get to your piece, Harry, that you wrote. It's called "President Trump Thinks He is a King." And if you want to read it, go to the New York Times. It's a fascinating piece. I wanted to spend more time with it, but unfortunately we're out of time. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Don.
We have some more developments tonight to tell you about out of the White House. First Lady Melania Trump, who had not been seen publicly for the past 24 days, attended an official White House event with President Trump today. The event was a private East Room reception for more than 40 Gold Star military families. A person inside the room told CNN the president made a lighthearted joke about the First Lady's extended absence from public view, saying the media was asking, "Where's Melania?" In a statement, the First Lady said it was a privilege to welcome the military families to the White House, and she thanked them and military members more broadly for their service. I'm glad she did that. But it is a legitimate question. We have not seen the First Lady in 24 days. It's not just the media. It would be common sense to ask how she's doing. Where is she? After all, she is the First Lady of the United States. When we come back, Robert Mueller accuses Paul Manafort of witness tampering, and that could send him to jail. More on that in just a moment. Chairman Paul Manafort of witness tampering. Special counsel is now asking the court to revoke Manafort's bond and house arrest. Here discussing CNN national security analyst Juliette Kayyem and former FBI Special Agent Clint Watts. He is the author of Messing with the Enemy, Surviving in a Social Media World of Hackers, Terrorists, Russians, and Fake News.